video diary. I just cleaned my apartment. Cleaning is one of the things that helps me forget about Forrest, or at least makes me feel like I'm not thinking, forgetting. It's like what happens during jiu-jitsu practice or deep guitar practice. You will forget your pain. That's the reason for those things. Well, I don't know if it's a reason for them, but it's certainly part of them and a very necessary byproduct for me. I've been thriving on activities that are so intensive that I don't think of Forrest. I come out of them going, oh, I haven't thought of anything. It's not specifically, well, no, it is specifically about Forrest. So I've been thinking, after hearing really horrible testimonials and listening to text messages that people's soon-to-be dead junkie children were writing their dealers, and just the weird love affair that exists between the junkie and the dealer, and that whole dance of death. And it got me, it's not my, realization here, but that the aesthetic of heroin, and I don't know about crack and speed, but I'm sure they have their own analogs, but the aesthetic of heroin is something that keeps people in it. I think it's one of those points that when you reach in life a superlative, like you've climbed a mountain, you've shot heroin, there's not much more you can add to a conversation. Like, have you ever tried drugs? Like, well, not really, except, I shot heroin for 10 years or once. It's a peak. Even if it's a negative peak, right, or a down. The spike goes down, or does it? Some people might think of that as some cred, some credibility that you bring to a conversation, that you're somehow more real if you've, shot up. I have needed to talk to some people who had used heroin and asked them, like, please tell me what is it like? Why would Forrest have gravitated to this, over other things or nothings, or one of the takeaways from that is how close it is to Oxy. Wow, that made me realize, so I'm not completely ignorant of what it is to be on opiates and feel the experience. But the aesthetic of it is something that maybe pills don't give a person. But with heroin, there's the call to your dealer. There's your needle, your whatever, your wherever you keep it, your ritual, your decision to do it, when to do it, how to do it. I mean, if it isn't reached a point where you're just like yourself with a needle every few hours just to keep going, I think at that point, things are pretty fucked up. But I think there is, before a person reaches that, a sort of dance of death with it, where the aesthetics of it are very captivating, and the dealer figures into all that. Your man, at least when that's the impression I'm getting from these testimonials, that it's a component that is fetishized to a degree that it becomes like this secret lifestyle that has some value in and of itself because it is unsanctioned or badass or off the rails or as high as you can get. At least to get people started, there's some notion of it being bundled with meaning things that I think we need to break. And one of the ways that I think we could break the aesthetics of heroin is to make it legal. That will completely erase the narrative that kids have, or fledgling junkies have, about it being an alternative, their own alternative to whatever's ailing them. How this would play out in my fantasy is that you make it legal, you make the best heroin available, or whatever it is. You give people monitored doses of whatever it is to keep them alive. Maybe there could even be hospitals, that could house people that wanted to be junkies, and they could get their daily heroin and see, reflect on whether or not this is a course of life they want to sustain. Because I think the other way, when you're doing it yourself and it's illegal and you have to run around and you have to do all of that subterfuge and lying and deceit, you're not ever going to get out, because you have created your own myth and narrative about controlling it, and you have met that network of dealers and supply chain that are just there to get your money and get you addicted. And it doesn't matter if you die to them. That's a good thing to your dealers. They're fucking animals. They're pieces of shit. They do not care. And largely, probably higher level dealers don't use their heroin because they know what it does to people. We do know of cases where people deal, for their own habits, but I don't consider people like that real players in the drug business, because they're not long for this world, and probably anyone around them or whoever's supplying them heroin can sense that. Yeah, so cut the legs off of the dealers, cut the feet right off of them by making it legal, taking the aesthetics out of it, where you no longer give a junkie or a partier or a kid who's curious the narrative of this is the most hidden thing, and it's got to be hidden for a reason, just like other things have been hidden in our cultures before that didn't deserve to be. This is something, heroin, that deserves to be eradicated, but it's only going to happen through knowledge. The thing that scared me was seeing junkies, seeing what their lives were like in the 70s, working with a couple of people who are on heroin, and this one particular case, and you just see it all. It's the same fucking story over and over again. So if it wasn't shameful, if it wasn't illegal, if it wasn't something you needed to call some piece of garbage for, if it was something that you could admit to yourself that you were having a problem with, but you could sustain yourself until or reached help. Maybe the place that's administering the drugs to you is also the place that you have people there counseling you. And we wouldn't have, I don't think, any more addicts. I think we'd have much fewer, and the recovery might be possible of people when they're around each other and going like, yeah, this really sucks. I don't like what this is physically doing. Because you don't do that when you're just running around. You know, you're hiding it. You're at different levels. People who don't want to deal with you because you're on the bad slide will leave you alone, or not, avoid you. It's you have no recourse towards anything societally positive or supported, and I think that's wrong. My son was killed, or he killed himself with fentanyl, which, I don't know, did he think that was heroin? I don't know. But I would prefer that he was alive today with an option, with a medical option, to give himself a chance to get out of there. And then when people relapse, they go back to the hospital. At least they don't die. And the main thing is that we cut the fucking legs off of these bullshit dealers and the supply chain. We end it overnight. This can't cost us more than all the money that we are spending. Aggregate all the money that America spends on anti-heroin or opiates or whatever it is. It cannot equal a positive, this is like a positive thing where you say this is a problem, we know you have it, here's your drugs. Now let's deal with why you're doing it and how to get you off of it. Because that's what we have to do anyway, and it's never going to happen. And these rehab places are making millions of dollars. They don't work. Largely, they do not work. I think the only thing I've heard, and I've heard it repeatedly, is that the junkie realizes that it's bullshit themselves, and to a degree that makes them go, this isn't for me. I'm not calling these friends anymore. They're not my friends. These are not support networks. This is not normal life. This is, chemical-induced bullshit life. And they said, I realized that there was great stuff to live for. I didn't want to do this anymore. I didn't want to feel sick every day. Not to mention, being a liar and a thief. All these things sort of seem to go together. My son's last words to me were, "I love you." I think I put this in an earlier, and they weren't, "fuck you." I know he made those choices. But he was a good person. And drug dealers are predators.